Okay, welcome to the live stream today, ladies and gents. I hope you are doing great. We're going to talk on this video about two major events that are going to be happening. The biggest of the two major events is going to take place tomorrow. Can you believe it is only a day now? We are one day away from this massive election, which is it is going to change the world. There's no way you can look at it without coming to that conclusion. It is going to be world changing tomorrow, whichever way it goes. So, and let's cover the other event first, though. This one is a little more minor than the other one. It involves Europe's largest economy. There's a lot of bad things coming out of there. Let me pull up the CNBC article. But we've got all these tabs. Look at this. This is so much to talk about today. I'm actually going to give you the we'll I never say with 100% accuracy, but it's pretty clear by one metric who is going to win tomorrow. And I never like to say with absolute certainty, but you can't look at the polls. There's another indicator that you have to look at, and that pretty much gives you a good idea. But let's talk about Germany first. We've got a couple of articles on this, then all the rest is on the US. So Germany's government, this has just come out today, is on the brink of collapse in Europe, and it's not looking good. I mean, this guy with his hand on his head there sort of tells you right away it is not looking good in Germany. So they've got a ruling coalition. It's been in place for a couple of years now, and it's on very shaky ground amid increasing divisions over economic and budget policies. And this is among its three member parties. The situation intensified in recent weeks, sparking concerns about the state of the three-year-old union between the Social Democrat, the SPD, the Greens, and the FDP. That stands for the Free Democrat Party. I do think they're going to get a shock at the next election, though, with the AFD coming through. But we're seeing a lot of negative stuff already happening this week. So the speculation is now rife about whether a breakup of the alliance could come as soon as this week. The media outlets reported talks between various coalition reps on Sunday, and this is ahead of a meeting on Wednesday. So we need to look out for this on Wednesday, because that could be the crunch time. German politics seem to have become a train crash in motion, slow motion. The German government has just entered a new stage of a slow-burning political crisis that could be the last step before the eventual collapse. This is them saying it, not me, by the way, of the government at the moment. Now, there's some other parts here. I want to just show you. This came out of BBC News earlier in the year, and it talked about the forecast for the German economy. You can see this dotted red line there. This was talking about inflation, sorry, to be more specific. But they were talking about the German economy having major issues. In fact, let me pull up a better article for you. But firstly, within Europe, Germany is the largest here. You can see Germany is the largest economy, so this is why it's so severe. But let me give you better articles out of Politico, and we've got others here talking. This is from Unheard about this area collapsing. So they're saying they're going to have a very bad awakening here. After years of turning a blind eye to what the rest of the world could plainly see, Germans are slowly coming to terms with the reality that they're in deep trouble as this is a funny quote, four horsemen of their economic apocalypse come into view. An exodus of major industry, a rapidly worsening demographic picture. This is because they are aging very rapidly without a replacement workforce. Although if you know, you know, crumbling infrastructure and a dearth of innovation. This is very accurate, actually, because you think about what's been happening in, well, a lot of these Western economies aging very rapidly. Look at Japan. Japan is probably the prime example. It's way ahead of the others. They, I just don't see a solution to Japan. I don't see how I don't see how any way out of that. But you look at Germany, you look at the UK, you look at a lot of the economies and it's an aging workforce with a lot of the money in that group and sector as well. Um, Although the UK government has just announced some crazy new taxes. We talked about this last week. Was it £50 billion worth of new taxes? They are just and what got me was all the people saying, isn't this wonderful? The government has found £50 billion. They've raised 50 billion. No, no, no. They're stealing. They are taking £50 billion from people and from businesses. This is never a good thing. There's always, we talk about the tipping point theory within economics. There's always a tipping point. You can only tax people so much, and then you will tip and the people will leave the country. We're way past that point for the very, very wealthy people, or let's say millionaires, although millionaires aren't the wealthy anymore. But you look at the millionaire class are fleeing more rapidly than any other country. And the UK is only a small country as well. So you're already seeing that, and you're going to see a lot more. If you actually look at what a lot of company execs are saying, CEOs and boards, etc., a lot of them are talking about either moving out of the UK or hiring less people, spending more money on AI, robotics, and things like that because of the um, it's called national insurance. If you're not from the UK, national insurance is a tax that you pay based on your earnings, so your employment earnings, and it's not small. Let's just say that. But you also pay your income tax as well. So some people pay astronomical amounts of tax. But the irony is, with this budget, now the employer, this tax rate as well has gone up to 15%. So the employer's paying 15% before even, you know, that bulk amount of your salary comes to you. And then you pay this national insurance, which is basically healthcare and a pension when you reach pension age, if people ever reach that, and if the money is even there for the pension. It's pretty crazy, all these extra taxes, and it's coming a lot from companies. Half of that 50 billion is coming from companies. So it's obvious what's going to happen if you're not innovating, like Germany isn't innovating. Someone was talking to me, actually, a very young person was asking me about why certain countries are struggling so much. And it was so interesting talking to this young person because they got it straight away. I was talking about energy and inflation and taxation. And they said straight away, well, if I don't have, energy, I can't play my computer game at home. And I said, there you go. If you don't have energy, you can't do other things. And then they were talking about power cuts when they lived in South Africa and things like that. And they said, I remember when my parents couldn't do their work because they worked from home and there was a power cut, or what do they call it? Well, it's basically load shedding, but they call it a power cut or a blackout. My parents couldn't do work, so they couldn't earn money during that. Yes, there you go. You understand it perfectly. So this is some of the things that we're seeing, especially Germany. Energy is just, closing all these power plants, the same in the UK. Energy is equal to GDP. You boost your energy, you boost your GDP. Because if you're not going to use the energy, you can sell the energy to other companies. It becomes very cheap for you. You know how all this stuff works. But Germany is just having a massive, massive issue right now. They've been preoccupied in recent years with migration, the war in Ukraine, and their economy has been imploding. The economic malaise is stoking fears that the country could see a further swerve to the political extremes. I think this is very likely to happen. I really do. And we see this a lot in lots of different countries, where countries swerve politically from one extreme to the other. And then what happens is, well, hopefully you get a balancing out. You get some sort of balance in the middle. You don't have these massive arguments, which I think the most extreme at the moment is the US, that we're going to see this tomorrow. No wonder they're getting the National Guard ready and all the other stuff ready for tomorrow. It's going to be explosive fireworks show. I'll be watching it from morning till night. I know it might sound a bit boring to some of you, but this is my sort of highlight event of the year, the US politics, the presidential election. and I've watched it each time, stayed up right through the night to watch it, and I find it very interesting how it works over in the US. You've also got the waning magic of made in Germany. And you think, and it talks about in this article, 15 years ago, everything was just, you thought of German manufacturing and anything made in Germany. And what did you think right away? You thought, wow, the products that Germany made are just so great. Everything what was a big one? Sort of Bosch. You think, I would think of, say, the Bosch company for certain engineering electronic products straight away. It isn't quite the same anymore. Chemicals and a lot of other manufacturing, it's not as competitive. And I think a lot of that is the energy sanctions and the government doing these crazy policies of just destroying what they class as, carbon intensive energy, destroying all that before you've even got all this new green energy in place. You've got to be pretty silly, pretty uneducated to do something like that. It's the same in the UK. You look at now, it's the highest electricity energy prices in the world. Why? Because they haven't planned ahead. And this is the thing as well with governments, where they're in power for a few years and then another one, they're not really doing things that are for the long-term benefit of the country. They're just doing things to get themselves elected all over again. The latest salvo of German doom landed late Monday with the announcement of US chip giant Intel that it was now placing this 30 billion euro German expansion on ice. So this is not going to be happening now either. They said they're delaying it for several years, but you and I both know what that means. So let's talk about the US election. This is tomorrow, and it really will. Tomorrow's election is going to change the world. Whether it's positive or negative, it will change the world tomorrow. And actually, let's ruin the surprise. I'll tell you who I think is going to win right away. So I don't look at all these polls, and I don't listen to the BBC, all of this stuff. All the stuff they're talking, New York Times, Washington Post. I don't look at any of this. Here's what I do. In fact, I don't even look at this poly market either, which says that Donald Trump is going to win with 60% of the votes. I don't even look at this, although I think that's fairly accurate. Here's what you actually do then. You go over to Odds Checker and you look at, I don't gamble, I'm not a betting man myself, but I do use this when I'm doing economics and I'm doing forecasting because it pretty much tells me. So what do? Here's all the different betting companies. You look on here at the odds and they're very similar across the board if you understand betting odds. If you don't, let me just take this one from this company here. They've got Trump at 8-13, Harris at 7-5. So I just threw this into GPT right away so you can understand what it's saying. So let's say I bet $100, okay? And I put 100 on Trump at 8-13. So for every $13 bet, I will win $8. You don't need to worry about the calculations here. So what does that mean then? It means for my $100 bet, the payout would be $161.54, okay? So then let's look at Harris. For 7-5 odds, if I bet $5, I'll win $7. So with a $100 bet, that is the calculation there, you'd win $140 on top of your $100 stake, making the payout $240. Okay, so Trump odds, the payout is 161. Harris odds is 240. What does that mean then? It means that they have Trump winning by a landslide. In fact, it's massive because you would only get 61 back for your 100 bet versus 140 there. So that is what I always look at. It tends to be fairly accurate because remember, they're in the business of being right, of making money from these bets, right? And you can look at a lot of other things. Let's refresh this because I was looking over, say, even the crypto price today. There's a lot of instability and you're not going to see much movement. In fact, we probably won't see much movement in the markets. Okay, since the market open, there's no change. you can see is just very unstable today. Even let's grab the FTSE. Yeah, even the FTSE, there's since market open, which was a lot earlier than the US markets here, there's not really been much change. There is so much instability. I think everybody is waiting to see what happens. What makes me laugh, though, I've got to say what makes me laugh about all the forecast on this. It's like all the media that you see says, oh, it's neck and neck. It's 50.1% to 49.9%. It's so close. There's just no way to call it. It could go either way. And then they're getting into all these stories like, what was the one I just saw? You know what? Actually, probably one of the biggest stories today is Peanut the squirrel. Do you know about Peanut the squirrel? If not, it's big in the US. I think I was trying to find loads of stuff today. I kept getting bombarded with this Peanut the squirrel story. So let me just tell you what happened. A man who runs a animal rescue rescued a squirrel 7 years ago when it was a baby. Its mother was run over in the street, and he's raised this squirrel, and the squirrel is the mascot, which earns money for his rehoming project for all of these different animals, right? So the squirrel earns money. Is such a cute squirrel, very, very clever, holds up signs and all this other stuff, and it's a big social media thing. He's like huge. Well, somebody, excuse me, where's my, gosh, sorry about that. Somebody, a neighbor, reported this guy in, obviously it's going to be New York, isn't it? Reported him for having a squirrel which didn't have a license. It reminds me of the UK, you know, the whole chicken license thing. So this man didn't have a license for the squirrel. So what happens? 8 officers raid his house with a warrant, a search warrant for this squirrel. He says that they tore his house apart. They took the squirrel and they, how can I say this on YouTube? They did away with the squirrel so that they could test it to see if it had rabies. Does that make any sense whatsoever? So of course, the reason it's a big story is because Trump and Vance have been talking about this, saying they sent 8 agents. This has been a case. 1,000 hours have been allocated to this case over this squirrel. And yet, like, you know, 8 officers doing a raid, and yet crime and migrants or whatever else they talk about. So crime, they don't do anything about it, but they allocate thousands of hours, all this money and resources to this man with his squirrel, which they destroyed. That's a better word, actually, I can say. They destroyed his pet. So yeah, didn't have a license for this squirrel, apparently. Gosh, the things. But now this is the other thing that I was seeing a lot of. Everything is saying the US is bracing for massive riots, civil unrest. How high is the risk? And there's all these stories. They said it's a tie, a virtual tie. Everyone keeps saying that. It's not a virtual tie at all. I might be eating my words tomorrow, though. We can laugh about this tomorrow if I'm wrong and he doesn't win. I will eat my words on this, even though I'm saying it's clear. All the odds, all the betting odds, all the other stuff shows who's going to win. It it wouldn't surprise me, let's just say, if that wasn't the case. But I don't think it will. Not this time. So from voter advocacy groups and election officials to risk management, security companies, they're all preparing for this civil unrest. They're saying, but don't worry, it won't happen today or tomorrow when everyone's voting. It's going to happen later. Most concerned about a spike in conspiracy theories. Yes, it's all to do with conspiracy theories, and that's why businesses in Portland have to board up their windows. Yeah, I'm sure that's why it's in Portland. Portland, Los Angeles, New York. What have these places got in common? I can't, it must be conspiracy theories, yes. Crucially, the risk of election-related unrest will rise substantially if it is contested, particularly should Trump lose to Harris. Indeed. National Guard is on standby. They've talked about this a lot this week, but now, why do they keep putting them in masks, by the way? That, you see they're all in masks. They don't wear masks. They love masking up. Even when there's nothing going on, they still put everyone in masks, don't they? CNN talks about this as well. Yeah, unrest. There's going to be big unrest. But it's funny where they are mobilizing the National Guard. It's only in certain areas, funny enough. New York Times as well, talking about this massive violence that's going to happen. Oh yes, and they have to use pictures like this. Oh yeah, there's going to be all these issues and everything else. What else? This one was funny. This article I was reading out of, I think this was out of the Telegraph. It said why it's so important that Kamala wins tomorrow, because she will be the United States' first black female president. But she would also be Howard's first alumnus. Who cares? What is the relevance of that? I don't know. But yes, that's it. That's why you should vote. Nothing to do with how qualified she is or anything like that. No, it's to do with demographics. Okay. Telegraph also ran a big story here. We won't go through all of this. It's quite interesting, though. It talks about the breakdown of Trump versus Harris. I almost said Biden then. Harris voters. Again, we have all these polls. It shows how it is. It's 50-50 in all these states. We'll see tomorrow. And this I thought was very interesting, since I'm streaming on YouTube right now. There's all these articles that have been coming out saying that YouTube has actually pushed back against this request to censor conservative broadcasters just before the election. And this has all come out of Zero Hedge, which is right-leaning. So it's very interesting that everyone is saying this. They tried to get all of these broadcasters taken off YouTube, or at least censored. See all of these commentators, and surprisingly, YouTube actually said no. We've got Linda, CEO of X, as well. We're not afraid of Media Matters. We're not afraid of the New York Times. They shouldn't be afraid of an informed group of citizens dedicated to freedom of speech. So very interesting. I'm very surprised, I've got to say. I'm very surprised that YouTube actually said no. Although, here's a couple of theories I've got on this, and you can drop yours in the chat here. I wonder if they are following Mark Zuckerberg, because you remember what he did. He did this massive U-turn the other week, where, because he is expecting, it's quite clear, he's expecting a Trump presidency. Because he's expecting that, he did this massive U-turn and said, oh, wasn't my fault that I censored, Republicans for all of this time. Wasn't my fault at all. It was because, the FBI and this department, Homeland Security, all these, they strong-armed me. They told me that I couldn't say this, or I couldn't do that. I had to censor all these people. I think that is the reason that he did his U-turn. And I'm wondering if that's why YouTube have done the same as well. That is my kind of theory on that, but you can let me know in the chat here. What else was there? All of these articles made me laugh so much. Oh, Harris is leading Trump among all these different areas. It's so funny. And then they talked about Trump's black hat. What does this black hat symbolize? It's obviously something bad. It's obviously something negative. That's what they're all talking about. Oh, gosh. Top Trump campaign officials acknowledged the possibility that their nominee may not win, as they briefed staff about how operations will wrap up after the election. Some of this stuff is absolute nonsense at all. Oh yeah, here was the peanut, the squirrel, and they had to pick up on this. Newsweek. It's become a MAGA firestorm apparently, and they are, they're using it as a PR piece and everything else. It's this
Peanut the
squirrel.
squirrel eating a waffle with his rescuer turned owner Mark Longo, who launched the critter to social media fame over the past 7 years. But now the squirrel and Longo are getting even more attention.
Peanut was the best thing that ever happened to us.
The New York State Department
Sorry, I didn't mean to actually laugh there. I just saw that guy with the big ripped arms, and then that voice threw me big time. I should have watched that beforehand, so I was prepared for that. But this is
Peanut butter squirrel.
A social media star has
this
been
was the
seized by
squirrel
authorities
anyway.
in upstate New York, and his fans are going nuts.
To take Peanut away from my family is not only, heart-wrenching, but then you take it away from the organization that solely gets its funding from social media that requires Peanut to get that funding.
Mark Long
Yeah, it was a pretty cool squirrel. It's such a yeah, such a shame, really. But I mean, we could talk all day on all this stuff. The other one that made me laugh was out of Bloomberg. Are you looking to move away from the US? Well, here we can help you. If if so and so wins, they always say the same person. If this person wins, and they say Portugal is your one of your main spots, which is interesting because I'll be talking to you from Portugal later in the week or early next week. So that would be interesting. What else was there today? I think that was most of the stuff I wanted to talk about today. I just looking at the chats here, looking through. Yeah, do you know what? He should have said he was a service animal. Someone just put in the chat. Someone should have said he is a emotional support squirrel. What made me laugh though about the whole thing, and by the way, when I say what made me laugh, sometimes Americans say, Neil, why would you laugh at that? It's a British saying. It just means like, it's ironic. It's not ha funny. It's anyway, it's a saying. What I found really crazy about that, let's use that instead, was they said he needed a license to own this squirrel that lives on a farm. Yeah, so many acres. The squirrel, it's not like the squirrel goes to the shop or something. I mean, the squirrel's on a farm. I think what happened, some neighbor was obviously jealous that he's making all of this money from this squirrel and reported him. And I mean, do you really need 8 officers to raid a house and then to destroy to destroy the animal? And they said the reason they destroyed the animal was so they could test it for rabies. Where it would have got rabies from, I'm not exactly sure on this fact. The whole thing is crazy, absolutely just mind-blowing to me. But let's wrap it up there. Thanks so much for being online today. Really appreciate you all. Take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video.